Okay, so kia ora and welcome to Love Literacy Inspired, a podcast where we're going to explore real stories behind Aotearoa's literacy journeys. I am Heather Down, founder of Love Literacy and passionate advocate for structured evidence-based teaching. And in each episode, I'm going to sit down with some inspiring New Zealanders, teachers, parents, advocates, and learners to hear how literacy has shaped their lives and their work and their hearts. So, whether you're in the classroom or sitting at your kitchen table or just keen to learn, I'm so glad you're here. So, let us dive in. So, today I've got the lovely Marianne Brown from Marianne Brown Literacy. Thank you so much for joining me on the very first episode of Love Literacy Inspired.
Lovely to be here, Heather. It's really nice
Oh,
to join you.
awesome. I'm so glad. So, we'll just jump in. So, I thought, what better way to do an introduction than to have you tell us a little bit about you, Marianne Brown. So, tell us a little bit about you.
Where do I start? First, I think it's quite important to know about me right from the very beginning. I am a New Zealand-born person, but my childhood I spent speaking a second language. So, when I was quite young, we went back to the Netherlands because that's where my family are from. And by the time we came back to New Zealand and I was ready to start school, I was a complete fluent Dutch speaker. And so that's how I started my schooling journey. And in fact, I was quite indignant on the first day of school because I've always been interested in English and wanting to learn and reading. And I was quite indignant because how was I going to ever learn how to read when my teacher didn't even know how to speak properly? So I remember that feeling as a 5-year-old. Eventually, of course, learnt English and fast forward to starting my teaching degree, went through Teachers College, and I've basically been teaching almost 35 years now. I
Mm.
am married we got married very young. I was 19 when we got married,
Oh my
and
goodness.
still very happily married for 30 years. So we've got three lovely children, and of course, one beautiful little grandchild who I managed to see today, which was the apple of my eye.
Oh,
He's gorgeous.
well, congratulations on becoming so are you grandma or are you
No, I'm Olma. So
Oma? Yeah,
that's
I was
the
just going to
Dutch
say, I
Olma.
was thinking, what is the Dutch? Yeah. So
Absolutely.
that's fascinating. So
Mm.
I'm thinking that with English being your second language, you probably had a lot of empathy for English as second language within school and can understand how that can be, you can understand the journey that they're on, these children are on when they're in school.
Absolutely. So, when I'm teaching, I have two hats on. I'm very much coming from the ESOL space.
Yeah.
So, particularly for the last, I think, 6 years, I have been teaching ESOL, as well as reading intervention before moving into a facilitator role, of course. But yeah, even when I'm facilitating, if you've been to one of my workshops before, you'll hear me talk about ESOL students
Yeah.
because particularly within intervention, right, we have a lot of ESOL students there. So yeah, my heart is very much in both spaces because
Mm.
I know exactly what it's like and how it feels to not understand the language, to not be able to access the learning because you don't know what people are talking about, let
Mm.
alone being able to read that language, right? So yeah,
Yeah.
ESOL children have a real special place in my heart.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. No, that's fascinating. I've been listening to a little bit more about English as a second language, and just it's not only there's so much to it, like the nuances behind language, the drawing the being able to comprehend what they're reading, not just reading the words, but it's making that connection with the comprehension as well. There's
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah.
there's so much to
Yeah.
learn, and trying to make the parallels with their own language as well. So
Absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
It's a very
yeah.
fine dance sometimes, isn't it?
A
Yeah.
very fine dance, yeah. So that is interesting. So at the moment you're presenting the professional learning development,
Hmm.
but obviously from what we've sort of talked about, you haven't always had this role. So can you talk me through a little bit
Yeah.
of because it's obviously quite long, yeah, spanning a lot of years. So yeah, tell me a bit more.
Yeah. Sure. So, our first 25 years of teaching, I was in the classroom, mainly in the new entrant year 1 and 2 space. So, that's where a lot of my experiences come from. But I have actually taught every single year from new entrants through to year 12.
Oh wow.
I did a few years in a high school, ironically enough, teaching science, which has got nothing to do with
That's
literacy right
nothing to do
now.
with literacy.
But yeah, still gained a lot of skills through that.
Mm,
And so, yeah, first 25 years very much embedded in as a classroom teacher.
mm,
Then, yeah, about 11 or 12 years ago, I moved into the intervention space. But at that point, of course, I didn't know any better. So I was teaching whole language
yeah.
and, getting lots of kids through my doors. In fact, I would have 110 referrals a year
Oh wow.
from our school. And I was just pumping them through, sometimes a couple of weeks, get them moving and send them back to class. And yeah, sure enough, next term they needed another little boost.
Mm,
And that's primarily what I was doing, right?
mm,
But what happened was about, let's see, we're going on 10 years ago, my own son was diagnosed with dyslexia. And at that point, he was 15 years old. And, here I was, a supposed literacy specialist,
mhm,
and I had no idea how to help my son. And you can imagine the feelings that I was feeling. There was some degree of embarrassment. Like
mm,
I just didn't even know what to do to help him.
mm,
There was fear, what is
mm,
going to happen with him. He was struggling in high school by this stage. He had, struggled all through primary, and I didn't even put two and two together that he had dyslexia because I didn't know anything about it.
mm,
And so it was around that time that I actually reached out to our local Artie Lit, Deb Fitzgerald, who is, I cannot thank her enough for
mm.
pointing me in the right direction. So, yeah, Deb kind of put me in touch with Liz Kane at the time because
Yep.
we're both from the Manawatu. And at that stage, Liz was putting on a few um, yeah, like workshops really for parents
Mm.
out in the old local Paper Plus. I think there were about five of us who turned up, and she was
Wow.
talking about this new thing she was learning about structured literacy. And I had gone just as a parent.
Hmm.
And as she was talking, and the more I talked to Deb as well, I started to realize actually this could be something that not only helps my child, but I wonder if it will work with my intervention students. But of course, back then it was a little bit of a, negative thing, structural literacy. So I had to very carefully start implementing some things. And I was actually really scared, really, really scared to throw away all my training
Yeah.
that I'd had up till there, at that point, 25 years of experience. I
Mm,
thought I was doing a wonderful job at
mm,
teaching children how to read. And actually, I could never really understand why I was getting these 110 kids every
mm,
year.
mm,
So I started to just read, read, read. And I
mm.
read everything I could because at that point there wasn't a whole lot in New Zealand.
No
So looked at all
worries.
those overseas
Yeah.
people and just I mean, I remember if I couldn't sleep at 2 o'clock in the morning, I'd be
Mm.
sitting there with my phone reading articles. I was that desperate and hungry for the knowledge.
Mm.
So yeah, that's how I kind of started and got into changing over from whole language and intervention
Yeah.
to structural literacy and intervention.
Oh,
Yeah.
wow. Yeah. Gosh, yeah. I mean, I can draw some parallels there with you
Mm,
as well. Yeah, with obviously my son. Yeah, and again, not understanding what was going on. And at the time I was an early childhood teacher. And it was his behavior that made me feel embarrassed because there I was, an early childhood teacher who was trained in behavior management, and yet again couldn't manage my own son. I think that's the conundrum of being an expert in your field and yet
mm,
feeling completely and utterly lost um, as to where to go and what to do. Yeah.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
on that, if I can just add to that,
Mm.
it has been a deep frustration of mine that I found out about structural literacy when I did, because obviously by the time I got that knowledge, my son was now 17. And at 17, and even to this day, he has totally refused,
Mm.
doesn't want me to do anything with him
Mm.
because he's schooled out.
Mm.
And so it's always what drives me in my work is I'm going to make sure that teachers have got that knowledge
Mm.
so that they don't have um, to think, what do I do with these children that aren't learning, and
Mm.
that's what drives me, giving teachers knowledge so that they can help children like my son, really.
Mm.
And yeah, it's just a real shame that it was just too late, really, for
Yeah.
him. It's yeah, it
Yeah.
is
And we
sad.
think about like when these children enter in school, they've got this pathway forward, and we want to make sure that the trajectory that we put them on is going to take them as far as they can possibly go,
Mm,
not in a completely different direction. And I
mm.
think that's what the really hard thing is when we look back on that as parents is the could have, should have, and would have. Uh,
Yep.
and those are the things that I always think of is
Mm,
yeah. Um, what could I have done? What should I have done had I
mm.
known? But yeah,
Absolutely.
yeah,
Yeah. But there was a happy ending. He's
oh,
managed
good.
to have a wonderful career. And yeah, just when he needs help with his literacy, there's a phone call to mum. Mum, can you help me? So, he's thriving and absolutely has found his niche. So it's
Yeah.
not a complete sad story, so to speak. But yeah, it's just that teacher in me thinks,
Yes.
oh, what if,
Yeah.
what if I'd had that knowledge earlier? Would I have made his experience at school so much more pleasant? Yeah.
So your son obviously started to shape your literacy journey a little bit, but obviously Liz Kane started to shape your journey a little bit
Hmm.
as well. So can you talk us through a little bit more about what you started discovering after you attended the Liz Kane workshop?
Yeah. So what I found really, really helpful was getting alongside somebody. So I've already mentioned Deb.
Mm.
She was a arty lit associated with our school, so I just constantly asked her questions, picked her brain, and really it was about taking those little small chunks. Every
Yeah.
bit of information I could find, I would. I joined as many at that time Facebook groups as I could. They were mainly overseas ones because that's where a lot of the information was.
Mm.
YouTube became my friend. I just looked up lots and lots of videos of teachers modeling, etc., and
Mm.
just tried to learn as much as I could. And I was really, really grateful that by the time I was really starting to dive deep into it, I had a management at school that was supportive of me exploring. So anytime I said, look, um, can I go on this course? It's just a 1 day course. Will the school fund that? I'll fund everything else. I'll fund the flights. I'll,
Yeah,
whatever.
yeah, whatever.
Like, yeah, just
Yeah, let me go.
I'm so desperate to go
Yeah.
that, yeah, yeah. And really, it was about getting a bit of a network or a growing network of
Mm,
people around me that were starting to think the same things, ask the same questions, and
mm,
I mean, I just spent hours on it. I was virtually living and breathing it for a number of years,
mm,
to the point where I'd be watching TV and, I'd hear an interesting word and I'd be sitting there going, and my husband would say, are you counting phonemes again? Because, I was that immersed in language.
yeah,
And you have to
yeah,
understand too, from coming from an ESOL background,
yeah,
and not fully understanding the English language growing up, I was just the amount I had to learn
yeah.
was just phenomenal. And so that's why I just threw myself into it. Um, it's literally thousands of hours
Hours,
of
yeah.
learning. Yeah,
And
absolutely.
thinking about COVID too, because I think like for me, COVID sort of highlighted a lot of the lower, really low levels in literacy. How did you find COVID affected the school that you were working in?
Um, well, I guess being in the Manawatu, we were a little bit fortunate we didn't lock down as many weeks as some other parts of the country.
Mm,
So that was great in terms of the kids were at school a lot
yeah,
longer. What it really did open up was the ability for us as teachers to make videos and have the time to do that to
yes.
start educating our parents.
Mm,
And that we found a big leap forward in literacy just with that. So while we look at COVID as a negative time, I actually think it was a really positive time in terms of literacy teaching because we had parents who were interested. All of a sudden, they had
mm.
their kids at
Yeah,
home and
yeah, absolutely. They
got the
could,
time to look at their
yes,
learning,
yes,
right?
yeah,
Yeah. And as teachers, we had time to
yeah.
produce some of this wonderful knowledge that we could give the students. So I know at our school, we had teachers, going through a sound pack and videoing that, going through words and even reading text together with the children and recording all of that. So we've built up this lovely um, bank of knowledge that our parents can access. Whether that still gets used to the same extent, I don't know, because parents obviously are a lot busier now. But
Mm,
it was really the turning point for some of our parents that they became just a little bit more on board and more
mm,
invested. And
mm.
partly because they just had the time to just breathe and look at what their kids were doing, right?
Yeah, yeah, and they
Yeah,
probably would have started to see, oh, well, when we're implementing some of these strategies, we're actually seeing some positive results with our reading, writing, and spelling.
yeah.
Um, so I think, like from what I could put together, the school was actually quite progressive in
Mm.
terms of implementing some of the structured literacy principles, um, quite a few years ago. Yeah,
Yeah, absolutely. Our school was well on the journey by then.
yeah,
So we were fully implementing structure literacy. So it
mm,
just came at the right time,
yeah.
COVID. And what was really interesting is we had lots of parents say to us, "Oh, our kids are telling me about these sounds, and I didn't even know what the sounds of the alphabet were." And
Um,
so here's my 5-year-old telling me how to pronounce some of these things. So there was a lot of learning from the parents, and I think they could see too, oh, actually, our kids are being taught
yes,
explicitly. And
yes.
so therefore, as a parent,
Yep.
I need to be thinking about some of those things too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
quite honestly, like in I mean, you would probably be able to draw some parallels as well, but in my role, I work with a lot of neurodiverse students, and the parents are quite often, because we know that it runs in families and it's
Hmm.
genetic, but a lot of the parents are neurodiverse as well. And what I'm beginning to see is that the parents are actually starting to learn alongside their children.
Hmm.
And where they may have been scared of literacy and reading beforehand, because they can see how we can break it down to some really explicit and understandable chunks, that they're actually on board with the journey as well, and
Mm,
they're learning along
mm,
as well.
yeah. I mean, even just putting on my ESOL hat,
Yeah.
how wonderful it is when you actually have actual knowledge to
Mm.
be able to read a book, as opposed to
Yeah.
having to try and guess at the words when you
Yeah.
don't have the language behind it,
Yeah,
you
yeah.
know?
Oh, yeah,
Yep.
exactly. It's like the old thing, is it horse or pony? Is it
Yeah.
yeah, like I'm looking at the picture, and yeah, what am I actually reading? I always think,
Yeah.
there's a big difference between invite and invade. They both start off with INV, but a
Mm,
very big difference between invite and invade. Yeah, so I was fascinated because, yeah, on I was reading that you had a special focus on structured literacy for the past 9 years, and I was thinking, wow, 9 years.
mm,
Yeah, so now I can understand how that's come about from,
mm.
yeah, from pre-COVID. So
Yeah, absolutely.
so now I'm just going to maybe bring it to at the moment, like let's talk a little bit about the professional learning that you're doing at the moment,
Hmm.
because it is a really beautiful progression. Teacher, reading intervention specialist, literacy teacher, and now you're doing coaching and professional development. Like, how have you found the professional development hat? Talk us through.
I am loving it.
Oh,
Absolutely loving it.
that's so awesome.
Absolutely. I have never, I mean, yes, I love teaching children, and I must say, I think all teachers find this, don't they, that they miss certain key kids that you think, oh, I wonder
Mm,
how they're going. And particularly in intervention, there are a few that are sitting on my heart.
mm,
But I am absolutely loving the opportunity to work with teachers. And I think it's because I'm getting that real thrill in knowing that the knowledge that I've got from the last 9, 10 years of learning about structured literacy, that I'm able to pass that on to other teachers, get
mm.
them inspired, because then they're going to impact kids like
Yeah.
my son. And I know that sounds really cliche, but that
Oh,
is honestly
mm,
why I do the work that I do.
mm,
That is totally what drives me. And so when I see teachers go, oh, I'm thinking of that kid that, and particularly if I'm explaining a spelling rule or a different sound, and trying to break it down and show how to sequence that learning and that teaching, that they go, oh, that makes more sense now,
mm,
and it's
mm,
broken down, and I can sequence that delivery for that child, and I know that they're going to get that. And to
mm,
me, that's like a yes, that's one
mm.
more child that's, going to be impacted by that. And yeah.
Yeah, yeah. And for every teacher that you inspire, they're potentially coming into contact with, 25
Mm,
children in that one year, 25 children in that next year. And so the impact of your teaching trickles down, and yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. And I
And
just love how teachers have become so enthusiastic about
oh
this
yeah.
learning.
Mm,
If I look back at 10 years ago, when I was first starting to talk about structured literacy and exploring it, I had to be really careful with who I spoke to. And I just really get a thrill. I even said this a couple of days ago at a workshop that I was taking. I said I get a real thrill when I walk into a room with 100 teachers
Mm.
and everyone's there to hear about structured literacy.
Oh,
Okay, give
yeah.
or take, a couple will probably have to be there, but
Mm.
most of them are hungry for that knowledge and just to see the change that's happened within our country over the last 10 years, it just
Yeah.
really inspires me. I
Yeah.
think how quickly, even though 10 years seems like a long
Yeah.
time, but if we look at other countries around the world, when they were first starting their journey, New Zealand's been relatively quick to
Mm.
embrace
Mm.
structural literacy.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And it's because it rings true, right? As a
Mm.
teacher, you instinctively know there's something in this
Yeah.
that because the other stuff wasn't always working for kids.
Well, that was right
Yeah.
because we were there, and there were the few of them where reading and writing came naturally.
Mm.
Yeah, so we had that top, I think it's at 20%. We're reading and or 10%. I forget the exact numbers. We're reading and writing
Yeah.
just came naturally. I was one of those students, and then the middle one where we had to work a little bit hard, and then the bottom one where it was just
Yeah.
completely out of their
Mm.
grasp.
Mm.
Yeah, and it's fascinating. You think in that 10 years we've come such a long way from 5 people that attended a workshop with you to the hundreds that we're getting now,
Mm.
who are ready to embrace. And what I like the idea of as well is that, every time I attend some PLD, and I hope this the same for other teachers, that you might get that one, you might listen to that one little thing, or there's one little area that you just think, oh wow, I really want to learn a bit more about that. And then
Mm.
you dig a bit deeper and you dig a bit deeper, and you just go on this really amazing journey.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Yeah, because it
Look,
just, yeah.
that's one of my catchphrases actually.
Oh,
And
yep,
whenever I'm taking a workshop, I always say to people, you're going to have 3 days
yep.
of so much information. Be kind to yourself. It takes the
Mm,
average teacher 4 years
mm.
to start implementing it really, really well.
Oh,
So, in this
absolutely.
3 days that you do this PD, pick that one area that you know that's my next step
Yep.
and dig deep into it.
Mm,
And that's why we present all of it because that will tell you where you're eventually headed to,
mm,
bringing in all these different areas of structured literacy. But be kind to yourself. You can't implement it all at one go.
mm.
And we don't actually want you to implement it all in one go because it's too much.
Too
And,
much. Yep.
you know, so just be kind to yourself and just implement, your next step. Identify what that is and do it well, and then park the rest until the next time you're ready to do some more, whether that's in a month's time that you can pick up another part and you
Absolutely.
just keep going like that. Yeah,
Yeah, yeah. I think back to the beginning when for me it was just about getting the lesson sequence down pat.
absolutely. Yeah.
I was mostly learning, and look, we all have to start somewhere. I was learning the phoneme, grapheme correspondences alongside my students. I was
Hmm.
researching them, the day before I was teaching. I think it was only last year that I did a deep dive into writing, and
Hmm.
and that's 5 years on, and this year I finally feel like I've got enough together to be able to look at how knowledge fits in with the reading and writing rope. So yeah, do you know what? Your advice is so sage. To
Mm.
all the beginning teachers out there, or even, teachers who have been doing this for quite a long time, but we're implementing a different way of teaching, that small and steady steps
Mm.
are the way to go.
Absolutely. And the other bit of advice is don't think that if you've been doing it for 3 years that you
Yes,
know everything about structural literacy either.
yes, yeah,
There's actually more learning to be done.
yeah,
So, it does take a while.
yeah,
That's why we call it a journey. It's not just a,
yeah.
a PD course that you do and you
Mm.
just go and implement it.
Yeah, got
It's
my
about taking that
certificate.
journey. Yeah. And look,
Yeah.
10 years on, I am still learning stuff
Mhm.
and diving into, more
Mm.
parts of structured literacy. And
Mm.
yeah, actually hope I will never be done because,
Oh, I
if
agree.
you look at the English language, right, there's so much to learn.
Oh,
So, yeah.
absolutely. Yeah, because the other thing that this year that I really got excited about was morphology.
Mm,
And just how because I see that you present that in your workshops and just the role of
yes.
morphology and breaking things down into word parts. And that had never occurred to me before to look at.
Mm,
And so that's another area that I've got quite excited about. And I'm thinking, wow, I love the fact that I'm still on my journey and I'm still getting
mm,
excited and rubbing my hands together when I
yeah.
find
Yeah.
something, yeah, when I
Mm.
find something new. Um, so I think my next question will be if you could go back to your younger self, what advice would you give to your younger self?
So just before, so while I was still teaching,
Yeah, yeah. So if
yeah.
you could, yeah, if you could go back to your younger self when you were still teaching, before you discovered structured literacy, what would your advice be?
Oh, that is a good question. Um, Probably, well, I don't know that I'd necessarily give myself some advice because I feel like everything that I was doing led up to it. I've
Yeah.
always been a questioner.
Yes.
I've always questioned what we do
Mm-hmm.
and whether it's making sense or whether it's ringing true.
Mm.
Um, but I would probably say more as a parent,
Yes.
that, sometimes we don't always have the answers, and that's okay.
Mm.
But keep questioning, keep asking those questions, but more importantly, get alongside somebody who they might not know the answer, but they might point you to somebody who does. And
Mm.
I think that was the turning point for me, was
Yeah.
that I reached out to my Auntie Lit, and it's
Yeah.
a real shame, isn't it,
Yeah.
that they're
Yeah.
going because they are a wealth of knowledge.
Yeah.
But get alongside somebody who might be able to point you in the right direction, and always be open to perhaps changing the direction your journey
Mm.
goes,
Yeah.
and exploring more, really. Yeah,
Yeah, and I think that sort of it makes me think of the saying "go with your gut" as
absolutely.
well. Like
Yeah.
if we had advice for parents, it would be along the lines of go with your gut, keep pushing,
Mm,
keep questioning. Um,
mm, yeah.
yeah. So
Yeah,
if you
just
had
keep
like
learning.
keep learning to and thinking about the perspective of you with your parent hat on, would you have advice for parents with dyslexic or neurodiverse members of the family?
Yeah, absolutely. Um, don't put your head in the sand. I'm just speaking from
Mm,
my opinion. I know that sounds,
mm,
quite direct, but it's okay to be questioning because they aren't going to grow out of it.
mm. Ah, yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I was told that so often, oh, he's a boy, he'll get there eventually.
Mm,
Um, oh, he's only been at school 3 or 4 years, he'll get there eventually. And
mm,
actually, when eventually did arrive,
mm,
it still wasn't happening. And
mm,
I really left it almost a little
mm,
bit too late. And part
mm.
of it was denial,
Yep.
and also just, yeah, not understand. I think too, I just didn't know how to fix it.
Yes.
So if I didn't know how to fix it, I wasn't going to go question, right? Because I didn't know
Yeah.
what to do anyway.
And we wouldn't have had the questions to ask anyway because we wouldn't wouldn't
Exactly.
we wouldn't know what the answers
Exactly.
were.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so
So
yeah.
my advice is maybe not try and fix it yourself so much, but go
Mm,
to somebody who can point you in the right direction.
mm,
And from that, you might learn and go on that journey yourself.
mm,
And, just, yeah, journey alongside your child. But when you start to have that gut feeling that,
mm.
hey, something's not quite right here, ask questions. yeah,
Mm. And
yeah.
I think too, like we're with the PLD, um, I think there's a lot more knowledge now because teachers are being taught it to be on the lookout for
Yeah,
neurodiversity, what it might look like. We've got a better idea of what phoneme grapheme correspondences we should be learning, and we've got a more of an idea of the red flags to watch out for.
mm,
And hopefully we can take that knowledge as well. And yeah,
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. So actually the next part of my journey, I mean, I'm
Oh
doing
yeah,
the
yes.
year 0 to 3 and the year 4 to 8 PLD, but I'm about to move into the targeted and tailored PLD space.
Oh
So
wow.
next term, that's kind of my next journey is
Okay, yes.
helping specialist literacy teachers as well. That yeah, they get that knowledge, and hopefully I can impart a little bit of my experience of being an intervention teacher, and we're really diving in even deeper into some of those things like dyslexia and
Yeah.
etc. So yeah, so that's sort
Oh,
of my next bit of the
that
journey too.
that
I'm
is
still
going
learning
to,
too and
and this is
moving
the
on. Yeah,
yeah, this is the exciting thing. Like there's just always more
yeah,
to add on to
mm,
things. I did
yes.
actually want to, it's a little bit out of sequence here, but there was one thing I did want to ask, and that was a little bit about how you found organizing sharing best practice, because we one of the things that New Zealand did jump on board with was the sharing best practice grassroots professional development as well. And I just
hmm
thought maybe you could just talk a little bit about your journey with the sharing best practice as well.
So yeah, I've been involved in a number of sharing best practices, obviously
Mm.
ones that Liz has organised. I've
Mm.
been a speaker at some of those. And then when I was approached by, um, oh gosh, the name's gone straight out of my head. I've got
Lifting literacy Aotearoa?
yes, yeah, um, yeah, absolutely. And approached by them to bring it to the Manawatu.
Yeah.
So
Mm.
yeah, had a great time organising that, and I was just really, really excited to see other practitioners
Mm.
wanting to jump in and
Mm.
just lend their time, because nobody gets paid for any of this. It is just comes out of a true passion
For the
for
love.
literacy.
It's for the love.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Every time I go and speak at a conference or a sharing best practice, it's always out of love
Mm.
and sharing that knowledge. So it was really lovely to be able to work alongside
Mm.
some of the leaders within our country and bring that knowledge to the teachers and yeah, so I really enjoyed that. A lot of organisation, of course,
Mm. Mm.
and but it was just really great. We had amazing feedback
Mm.
afterwards that teachers found it really worthwhile,
Mm.
and I think, like you say, it's grassroots.
Mm.
So
Yeah.
it's about what does it look like
Yeah.
practically in your classroom?
Yes.
What does it look like for you as a teacher on the day to day?
Mm.
And that's what teachers really need, right? That
Mm. Mm.
that
That real
practical
life
stuff.
experience.
Yeah,
Practical, like I've got all the theory, but how do I implement this?
exactly.
Show me the way to implement this. Talk to me about
Mm,
the things that might go wrong, but yeah, it helped me implement it within my classroom. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Oh, I think New Zealand's very lucky to have you. So I think I've got my final little thing here. So if you had a great big billboard to hold up and stand outside every school in Aotearoa, what would you want it to say about literacy?
Oh, I would want to say to the teachers, if I could
Mm.
face the billboard towards the school,
Mm.
I
I
would
like this. Yes.
say, teachers, keep learning.
Yes.
Keep questioning all these things that we've been talking about, but dive deeply.
Mm.
Today I was running a workshop and we were talking about explicit vocab teaching,
Mm.
and that it's more than just picking out words in a book and having a quick discussion, and then we move on.
Yep.
Look at how we teach that deeply, that vocab.
Mm,
So, yeah, we're doing some great things in
mm,
classrooms, but it's about that explicit deep diving into the
mm,
language, right?
Yeah,
If
absolutely.
I could hold that billboard out towards parents as they come in the
Yep.
gate of schools, I would say um, the importance of oral language. I
Yes.
think, I mean, I know I'm beating an old drum, right? But
Mm,
more and more our children are just not getting that rich vocab base that they need in order to participate in literacy.
yes. Yep.
That's where it stems from. It stems from oral
Yep.
language, and if they don't
Mm,
have that, you're taking them a couple of steps down the ladder before they
mm,
even start their learning. So
yeah. Yeah.
absolutely, put those screens away, get those
Yes.
picture books out, play
Engage
those
in some
board games.
conversation.
Yep,
Yep. Yep.
absolutely.
Yeah, pull
Yeah,
out your sentence starter from the jar in the middle of the table. And yeah,
absolutely. Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
yeah,
I just
yeah.
don't think we can even begin to comprehend the damage that's being done, right, with
Mhm.
screens and the tech that's available to our children, that it's robbing them of that rich language.
Oh,
And yeah,
absolutely. Absolutely. I was
yeah.
listening to a podcast the other day. It was a literacy based one, and they were talking about you pop a screen in front of an 18-month-old, and within
Mm,
about a minute they've worked out how to make it work.
yeah.
And there they are, nice and quiet, and but we just can't. It's that oral vocabulary,
Mm,
talking in sentences,
yeah.
reading that beautiful, rich text to them. It's yeah,
Mm,
and it's
yeah.
all that foundation of if we actually can't. I mean, we speak a lot in fragments anyway. I've just spoken in about
Mm,
10 fragments,
yeah.
but
So have
if
I.
we can't even put a sentence together, um, orally, how can we
Mm,
transfer it to writing? And
absolutely. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. Look, I was talking to a parent about this the other day, and they were saying, yeah, but I show my child educational videos and they're learning. Well, there might be a little bit of an argument for that, but my response to that is, yeah, but you as a parent can do that too. But a screen doesn't respond in conversation with your child. They just
mm,
speak at the child.
yeah,
Whereas if you're speaking with the child, it's a back and forward conversation. It's
mm,
human
mm,
contact, isn't it?
mm.
It's relational.
Oh,
A
absolutely.
screen is not relational, and oral language is about communicating with other people.
Yeah.
It's not about just absorbing information, it's
Mm,
communicating with our fellow human beings.
mm,
And so if they don't learn that skill, that's what literacy is about. It's about communicating
mm,
ideas and thoughts with other people.
mm,
That's part of literacy. That
mm,
yeah, that's what the screens are robbing,
mm.
because it's a presentation, it's not a conversation.
Oh, I love that. It's a presentation, not a conversation. Yeah,
Mm,
some really, yeah, it's a lot to think about with those as well.
mm, yeah.
So I think we'll round up and we'll finish up. And I just thought I might ask, or give you the opportunity to tell everybody where they can best find you. Where are you most active? Where can people find you?
Yeah,
And yeah.
absolutely. Well, I'm in several places, all under the Marianne Brown Literacy handle. So I have a web page or a website, Marianne Brown Literacy, which will give you information if you're wanting PD, or if you're a literacy specialist teacher. Go on there if you want to enroll in the targeted and tailored. I'm still doing cohort 5 and cohort 6, so
Okay.
you know,
Yeah.
get on
Yep.
board with that.
Yeah.
Some other information on the website. I've got a lot of products, of course, for
Yes.
sale. My new
Yeah.
sound
Yeah.
packs have just come
Yes.
out.
Yes, which look
Yes.
amazing. Yeah.
Yep, yep. They've been flying out like hotcakes. So,
Oh, so
um,
good.
and for me, it's about getting that knowledge to teachers because
Yeah.
on the back it shows how to teach some of those
Yes.
sounds, and there are links to videos
Yep,
where you
you've
can
got the
actually
little
watch me
QR
teach.
codes and
Yep.
you can watch it. And so if anybody's interested in seeing how to practically put these into use, you've
Mm.
got all of that there.
It's all
Yeah.
there. Yep,
Oh, that's
yep.
amazing.
Great for TAs as well because that gives
Yes,
them the knowledge
yes,
because they're
yes.
working with our most vulnerable
They
often.
are,
Yeah.
yeah, and
Mm.
they're still on their learning journey, and it's
Yep.
great to have something that's evidence-based that
Absolutely. Yep.
they can refer to.
Yeah,
Yeah.
so you can also find me on Facebook, Marianne
Yep.
Brown Literacy. And what will be really helpful is on YouTube, Marianne Brown
Mm,
Literacy, and there you'll find a whole lot of videos where
yes,
I'm teaching with real live children. So
yes, real
you
life
can
children. I
actually,
like that.
yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. So
Yes,
you can
and
see me
yeah,
modeling what
yeah.
does structured literacy look like in an intervention
Yeah.
space in particular. So
Yeah. And
yeah.
you've got some really great videos there, especially like the most popular one that a lot of people refer to as your one with the sliding sounds,
Yeah.
which
Mm,
I think is phenomenal because you still hear on podcasts, you still hear about, or you still see a lot of questions involving teachers who have got students that are stuck in that staccato
mm,
and they
yep,
can't move beyond that. And I think that's a key. Yeah, I'm a little bit
absolutely.
excited about saying this, but we'll pop it in the show notes.
Yeah,
So yeah, we'll pop everything in there.
yep,
But yeah, the sliding sounds one I think
yeah,
is a great video.
mm, yeah.
So
Thank
yeah.
you. Yeah.
So wow, I just would like to say thank you so much for your time tonight and being brave enough to share your journey. And I think that there are so many little nuggets of information, and you're I mean, the whole idea was to talk to some inspiring people, and I think you're very inspirational person. So yeah,
Oh,
just
thank you. You're
thank
going to
you.
make me blush.
Oh no! Look, to be honest, it was the sharing best practice, and I remember overhearing a little bit of your journey, thinking, "Wow, Marianne sounds really amazing." So yeah, and then from there, wanting to chat a little bit more.
Mm.
So
Yeah,
yes,
I just love how you're recording all these stories. I hope it
oh.
inspires people or just, yeah, it's nice to hear who is around in New Zealand, right? Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, well, that's it. And we hope that people will just take, even if it's one little bit of information, like I was saying with PD, one bit of information, it might make you want to dig a little bit
Mm,
deeper, or maybe you've been thinking about you're a parent, wondering about going on your own structured literacy journey. We all began somewhere,
yep.
yeah. All right, so now Mihi for joining me tonight on Love Literacy Inspired. Um, and if this conversation lit a spark, please share. We would love that if you could do that. And yeah, you can follow along on YouTube. And once I get this up on Spotify, we'll get up on Spotify. But yeah, keep sharing stories, asking questions, and loving literacy. And thank you so much for joining me tonight.
Thank you. Bye.
See you.